Hi everybody! Today I'm bringing you another Applique Basics, another version of how you can apply patches to your quilts. This is bonus episode number 2, and today I'm covering a raw edge applique. It also is known as applied patch. It's simple, it's charming, it's raw edge, so it has a tendency to fray a little bit, so it's not as fine a detail as the other kinds of applique, but it's a great addition to some quilts. After I show you this, I'm going to also include pictures of my quilt, A Touch of Fun, which is 12 pretty traditional quilt blocks where I've added a little applique to each of them that has just transformed each of the block into something new. So I'll include pictures of those. So to start with, we're starting with our fabric. We're starting with our cardboard template. Now in this case, I'm doing it hand by hand, but you could apply the patch to your background with machine. You might have seen like not neat stitching, just sort of like raggedy around as best you can machine stitch. That's also another way of doing this. So with your cardboard template, you have two options. You can trace the shape to the front, and that'll give you a line to stitch along. But if you don't feel you need a line to stitch along, you can also trace the template on the back, and then you won't even have any chalk marks. But because I like to have a line to stitch along, and because it's chalk, I know it'll disappear and won't be permanently on the quilt. So we're going to start just like all the others, or most of the others. Okay. And then it doesn't have to be pinking shears, but that's usually the way I do it. I get my pinking shears and I cut pretty close to that line. You don't want to cut the line because that's your shape, but you want to have the jaggedy edge just past it. You're not leaving a seam allowance. You're just leaving a jaggedy edge around the shape. There is no seam allowance in this one. And that's why you can, if you feel comfortable drawing on the back, you can use just along the jaggedy edge to stitch on, and that's also a pretty good guide. Now you can attach this to your background prior to quilting, but what I like to do, as with some of the others, I like to make it, like when I do the blanket stitch, I like to make it part of the quilting. So that's with this method, I like to do that as well. Okay. Now, we're going to baste it to our background with just a white cotton thread, just to hold it in place temporarily. So we get our stitching in. Big stitches on this is not for beauty or anything, it's just to hold it without pins. I love not having the pins that catch all the stitching. Okay, now since I like to do it as the quilting, I'm going to actually layer it on a batting and a backing. And I probably should get the cotton thread again and baste it, but for speed, I'm going to just do a pin. This one's really simple stitching. It's just a big running stitch. There's that running stitch again. I use embroidery floss for doing it this way. If I was doing it on a sewing machine with that sort of primitive stitching, I would probably just use regular stitching thread. I like to use embroidery floss when I do it by hand, and I use 3 strands. You can go 4, you can go 2, whatever you're comfortable with and how much you want it to show. And I tend to pick a color that matches the patch. So like with some of the others, I'm gonna tuck my knot into the between the layers. Or pull it through the back, however, if that's necessary, because it's in the middle of a pinned quilt. That's also possible. This is an easy way to do this because it's just a small sample. So my knot is tucked. Now, I don't know if I'll need my thimble. Let's try it without. So basically, I'm just going to do a running stitch through all the layers along my drawn line. And really, this is all there is to it. From my running stitch, I usually am about 1/8 of an inch, but no measuring required. It's just all charming. See how that's making a texture around the shape. Okay, I'm gonna finish the running stitch off camera, and I will show you what it's like when I'm complete. All right, I'm all the way around, and then I take my thread and I put it to the back and I tie it off the way I would on a quilt. I make my knot, I run my thread through the loop, and I make a knot about 1 stitch length away from where it's in the fabric. There, see? And then I run my needle between the backing and the batting, and I don't go to the front. I just run it between the layers. And then I give it a yank, and then the knot goes between the layers too. And then there's enough of a tail there that it shouldn't pull out. So I didn't mean to do that. I didn't even realize I snipped there. Cool. All right. So this is now attached to the quilt. We're pretending. And you can see it's got dimension, it's got charm, it's got raw edge. Because I pinked it, it shouldn't fray too much. But even if it frays, the stitching is there to keep it from completely fraying. And that's part of the point. It's going to have this charm of the raggedy edge. There. Okay, now don't forget, I will show pictures of it's called A Touch of Fun. And I had a lot of fun designing those blocks and adding these raw applique pieces to it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.